Welcome to Tales by Dima. This is the story of a young woman named Kemi, who was treated like a servant by her stepmother and her children after losing her mother. But everything changed when she discovered a shocking truth. The house she suffered in was actually hers. Now she must decide who stays and who leaves. Stay with me to the end to see what happens. God bless you. Kemi woke up on her 23rd birthday to the sound of her stepmother's voice screaming from downstairs. Kemi, where is my breakfast? I've been waiting for 20 minutes. Kemi's eyes opened slowly in the darkness of the storage room that had been her bedroom for the past 6 years. No windows, no proper bed, just a thin mattress on the concrete floor, a small lamp, and the smell of old cleaning supplies that never quite went away. She checked the small clock on the floor beside her mattress. 6:47 a.m. Her stepmother was complaining about waiting 20 minutes for breakfast when Kemi had only woken up 17 minutes ago. This was her life. This had been her life since she was 17 years old. I'm coming, Ma. Kemi called out, her voice still thick with sleep. She pulled herself up, splashed water on her face from the bucket in the corner, because the storage room had no sink, and hurried downstairs to the kitchen of the large mansion in Lekki Phase 1. The mansion her father had brought his new wife to just 3 months after Kemi's mother died. In the kitchen, her stepmother, Mrs. Folake, sat at the table, her arms crossed, her face twisted in the permanent expression of irritation she always wore when looking at Kemi. Good morning, Ma, Kemi said quietly, moving quickly to the stove to start cooking. Don't good morning me, Mrs. Folake snapped. Do you know what time it is? My children will be awake soon and hungry, and you're still sleeping like you're a guest in this house. I'm sorry, Ma. Sorry doesn't cook breakfast. Mrs. Folake stood up, adjusting her expensive silk robe. I want yam and eggs, and make sure the eggs are not too oily this time. Last week you nearly poisoned us with all that oil. Kemi bit her tongue and said nothing. She had used exactly 2 tablespoons of oil, the same amount any normal person would use. But arguing with Mrs. Folake was pointless. Her stepbrothers, twins named Tund and Kunnel, both 20 years old, came down next, already laughing at something on their phones. Ah, Kemi the maid is finally awake, Tund said, not even looking at her. I want tea. Not too hot, not too cold. You know how I like it. Yes, sir, Kemi said quietly. Sir. Kunnel laughed. Did you hear that, Tund? She called you sir, like we're her bosses or something. Well, aren't we? Tund grinned. I mean, she works for us, she cleans for us, she cooks for us. What else do you call that? They both laughed, and Kemi focused on peeling the yam, her hands moving automatically, her mind somewhere far away. This was normal. This was every single day. Her stepsister Adesawa, 19 years old and the baby of the family, came down last. She didn't say good morning. She just sat down at the table and started scrolling through Instagram, her long acrylic nails clicking against her phone screen. Kemi served breakfast silently. Yam and eggs for Mrs. Folake, tea for the twins, toast and juice for Adesawa. She stood by the wall, waiting in case anyone needed anything else, like she did every morning. Her father came down last, as always. Mr. Adelik was a quiet man, 52 years old, with a soft face that used to smile more before Kemi's mother died. Now he barely looked at anyone, especially not at Kemi. Good morning, Daddy, Kemi said softly. He grunted in response, sat down, and began eating the food she'd prepared for him. He didn't wish her a happy birthday. He didn't seem to remember it was her birthday at all. But then again, he hadn't remembered her birthday in 6 years. After breakfast, Kemi cleaned the kitchen, swept the house, washed the bathrooms, and started on the mountain of laundry. By 10 a.m., she was exhausted, but the day was far from over. That's when the doorbell rang. Kemi! Mrs. Folake's voice screeched from upstairs. Get the door. Are you deaf? Kemi wiped her wet hands on her faded wrapper and went to the front door. When she opened it, she found 3 people standing there. 2 men and 1 woman, all dressed in sharp business suits, carrying briefcases. Good morning, the woman said with a professional smile. We're looking for Miss Kemi Adelik. Kemi blinked in surprise. No one ever came looking for her. I'm Kemi. The woman's smile widened. Miss Adelique, my name is Barrister Okonkwo, and these are my colleagues from Okonkwo and Associates legal firm. We've been trying to reach you, but we didn't have a current phone number on file. May we come in? We have some very important documents to discuss with you. Documents. Kemi's heart started beating faster. I don't understand. Did I do something wrong? No, not at all, the male lawyer said kindly. Quite the opposite, actually. This concerns your late mother's estate. Before Kemi could respond, Mrs. Folake's voice came from the top of the stairs. Who is it, Kemi? If it's those Jehovah's Witness people again, tell them we're not interested. She stopped mid-sentence when she saw the three lawyers standing in the doorway. Her face changed immediately from annoyance to confusion to something that looked almost like fear. Who are you? Mrs. Folake demanded, coming down the stairs quickly. What do you want? Good morning, madam, Barrister Okonkwo said politely. We're here on official legal business concerning Miss Kemi Adelique and her late mother's will. Are you Mrs. Folake Adelique? I am. And what does Kemi's mother's will have to do with anything? That woman died 6 years ago. Yes, ma'am. And according to the terms of her will, certain assets were to be transferred to her daughter Kemi upon her 23rd birthday. The lawyer looked at Kemi. Which is today, if I'm not mistaken. Happy birthday, Miss Adelique. Kemi's mouth went dry. No one had said happy birthday to her all morning. And now a stranger was saying it while talking about her mother's will. What assets? Mrs. Folake's voice had gone sharp and cold. The lawyer pulled out a folder from her briefcase. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private? This concerns sensitive financial matters. By now, the twins and Adesawa had come to see what the noise was about. Mr. Adelique appeared at the top of the stairs, his face pale. Let's go to the living room, he said quietly. They all moved to the large, expensively furnished living room. Kemi sat on the edge of the sofa, her heart pounding, completely confused about what was happening. The lawyers sat across from her, and the family arranged themselves around the room like they were preparing for battle. If you're already hooked, if you can feel something big is about to explode, do me a favor right now, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Comment and tell me, what do you think is about to happen? Let's continue. Barrister Okonkwo opened her folder and pulled out several documents. Miss Kemi, I understand this may come as a surprise to you, but your mother, the late Mrs. Biodun Adelique, left very specific instructions in her will regarding her estate. I don't understand, Kemi whispered. My mother didn't have an estate. The lawyer's expression softened with something like pity. I'm afraid that's not accurate, Miss Kemi. Your mother was the sole owner of Biodun Enterprises, a very successful import-export company. She was also the sole owner of this property, the mansion we're sitting in right now. And she had significant savings and investments in her name. The room went completely silent. Kemi felt like the floor was tilting underneath her. What? Mrs. Folake stood up abruptly. That's impossible. My husband owns this house. He bought it before he married that woman. No, ma'am, the lawyer interrupted firmly. According to the property documents filed with the Lagos State Land Registry, this house was purchased by Mrs. Biodun Adelique in 2012, 8 years before her death. She was the sole name on the title. Your husband never owned this property. Mr. Adelique's face had gone from pale to gray. He said nothing. He just sat there, staring at the floor. The company, Biodun Enterprises, was also solely owned by Mrs. Biodun Adelique. The lawyer continued. She founded it, built it, and ran it successfully for 15 years before her death. Upon her passing, the company was placed in a trust, managed by our firm, with specific instructions. What instructions? Kemi's voice came out as barely a whisper. The lawyer looked directly at her. That everything, the house, the company, all assets and investments, would transfer to you, her daughter, on your 23rd birthday, which is today. Congratulations, Miss Adelique. You are now the owner of a very successful company and significant wealth. The silence that followed was so complete that Kemi could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Mrs. Folake's face had gone from confused to furious. This is ridiculous. This is fraud. That girl has been living here like a servant for 6 years. If she owned this house, why didn't anyone tell her? Because those were your mother's instructions, the lawyer said, still looking at Kemi. She specified that you were to inherit everything at 23, not before. She believed that age would give you the maturity to handle such responsibility. Kemi couldn't breathe, couldn't think. For 6 years, she had scrubbed floors in her own mother's house. For 6 years, she had slept in a storage room in a mansion that belonged to her. For 6 years, she had been treated like a servant by people who had been living off her mother's wealth. Did you know? Kemi turned to her father, her voice shaking. Did you know this house belonged to Mama? Did you know about the company? Mr. Adelik still couldn't look at her. His silence was answer enough. You knew, Kemi said, and something was breaking inside her chest. You knew this whole time and you let them treat me like I was nothing. Kemi, her father started. Don't. Kemi stood up, her legs shaking. She looked at the lawyer. What happens now? Barrister Okonkwo stood as well, handing Kemi the folder. These are the property documents, company registration papers, and bank account information. Everything is now legally in your name. The house, the business, all of it. You are the legal owner, and you have full authority to make any decisions regarding these assets. She looked at Kemi with something like respect, including deciding who lives in this house. The weight of those words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Mrs. Folake's eyes went wide with understanding. Tund and Kunnel looked at each other nervously. Adesua's mouth dropped open, and Mr. Adelik finally looked up at his daughter, seeing her clearly for the first time in 6 years. Kemi stood in the living room of her mother's house. Her house, holding documents that proved everything she'd believed for 6 years was a lie, and felt something shift inside her. She wasn't powerless anymore. She never had been. She just hadn't known it. Kemi looked down at the documents in her hands, then back at the people who had made her life a nightmare for 6 years. Her stepmother's face was pale. The twins looked scared. Adesua was crying quietly, and her father sat with his head in his hands, unable to meet her eyes. Miss Adelik, Barrister Okonkwo said gently, would you like us to stay while you process this information? Or would you prefer some privacy? Kemi's voice, when it came out, was steadier than she expected. Please stay. I might have questions. The lawyer nodded and sat back down. Mrs. Folake found her voice first, and it came out sharp and desperate. This is insane. That girl doesn't know the first thing about running a company or managing property. She can barely manage cleaning a kitchen without being told what to do. That's because you never let her do anything else, Kemi said quietly, and everyone turned to look at her. You turned me into a servant the day you walked into this house. You made me believe I had no choice, no power, no rights. She looked at her father. And you let them. Mr. Adelik's voice was barely a whisper. Kemi, I can explain. Can you? Kemi's hands were shaking, but she kept her voice level. Can you explain why you pretended this house was yours when it belonged to Mama? Can you explain why you let your wife and her children treat me like I was worthless? Can you explain why you never once stood up for me? He had no answer. Kemi turned to the lawyer. If this house belongs to me, can I decide who lives here? Yes, Miss Adelik. You have full legal authority over the property. And if I want people to leave, you can give them notice to vacate. Typically 30 days is standard, but as the property owner, you have the right to set the terms. Mrs. Folake shot to her feet. You can't be serious. Where are we supposed to go? This is our home. This was never your home, Kemi said, and her voice didn't shake anymore. This was my mother's home. She built it. She paid for it. She left it to me. You've been living here as guests. Guests who treated the actual owner like a servant. Kemi, please, Tun said, and for the first time in 6 years he wasn't mocking her. He was begging. We didn't know. We really didn't know the house belonged to your mother. Our mother told us. Your mother lied, Kemi interrupted. And you all believed her because it was easier than asking questions. You enjoyed the luxury, enjoyed the power, enjoyed having someone to order around. You didn't care where it came from as long as you benefited. Adesawa was crying harder now. I'm sorry, Kemi. I'm so sorry. I was horrible to you. I know I was. But please don't throw us out on the street. We have nowhere to go. If this moment is hitting you hard, if you feel the power of Kemi finally standing up for herself, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who needs to see it. Comment and tell me, what should Kemi do? Let's finish this journey. Kemi looked at her stepsister, at the tears running down her face, and felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just sadness. Sadness for all the years wasted. Sadness for the family they could have been but never were. I'm not throwing you out on the street, Kemi said quietly. But you can't stay here. She turned to Barrister Okonkwo. How long do I have to give them to find somewhere else to live? Legally, you could give them as little as 7 days. But 30 days is more common. Kemi thought about it. About 6 years of sleeping in a storage room. About 6 years of being called names and treated like she was worthless. About 6 years of believing she had nowhere else to go. 2 weeks, she said finally. You have 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live and move out. Mrs. Folake's face went red with fury. 2 weeks? Do you know how hard it is to find a place in Lagos in 2 weeks? I don't know, Kemi said calmly. I've never had to look. I was stuck here, in a storage room, believing I had no other options. Maybe now you'll understand what that feels like. She looked at her father, who still hadn't said a word. Daddy, you can stay. Everyone turned to look at her in surprise. What? Mrs. Folake shrieked. You're letting him stay but not us? He's my father, Kemi said simply. No matter what he did or didn't do, he's still my father. But the rest of you, you're not my family. You never treated me like family. So you need to leave. Mr. Adelik finally looked up, tears running down his face. Kemi, I don't deserve. No, you don't, Kemi agreed. But I'm giving you a chance anyway. A chance to be better. To be the father Mama wanted you to be. If you want to stay, those are my terms. She turned back to the lawyers. What do I need to do to make this official? Barrister Okonkwo smiled slightly. We'll prepare the eviction notices for you. They'll be legally binding. And we'll help you transition into managing the company and the other assets. You'll need to sign some documents, meet with the company managers, and learn about the business your mother built. My mother built a company? Kemi's voice cracked slightly. She'd known so little about her mother's life before she died. She built a very successful company, the lawyer said warmly. And she made sure it would be waiting for you when you were ready. She believed in you, Miss Adelik. She wanted you to have the tools to build your own life, free from anyone's control. Kemi closed her eyes briefly, feeling tears threatening. Her mother had protected her, even from beyond the grave. Had given her everything she needed to escape, to thrive, to be free. She just had to wait until today to claim it. Thank you, Mama, she whispered. When she opened her eyes, she looked at Mrs. Folake and her children one last time. I forgive you, she said quietly. I forgive all of you for how you treated me. Not because you deserve it, but because I don't want to carry that anger anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean you get to stay. You need to leave. Mrs. Folake opened her mouth to argue, but something in Kemi's face stopped her. For the first time in 6 years, she saw someone she couldn't bully, couldn't manipulate, couldn't control. She saw the owner of the house, and she had no power here anymore. 2 weeks later, Kemi stood in the now quiet mansion and watched as the moving truck pulled away, taking Mrs. Folake and her children to the small apartment they'd rented in Ikeja. Her father stood beside her, silent and ashamed but still there. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for all of it, for being weak, for letting them hurt you, for not protecting you the way I should have. I know, Kemi said. She didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't, But she didn't send him away either. They stood together in silence as the sun set over Lagos, over the mansion that had always belonged to Kemi, over the life she was finally free to build. That night, Kemi didn't sleep in the storage room. She slept in her mother's old bedroom, in a real bed, in a room with windows that let in moonlight. And for the first time in 6 years, she slept peacefully. The next morning, she woke up early, put on one of her mother's business suits that fit her perfectly, and went to Biodun Enterprises to meet the team her mother had built. She had a lot to learn, a lot to prove, a lot to build, but she wasn't afraid anymore, because she finally understood what her mother had known all along. Kemi was stronger than anyone had ever given her credit for. She just needed the chance to prove it. And now, finally, she had that chance. If the story moved you, if Kemi's journey from servant to owner inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel right now. Share this video with everyone who needs to remember that your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Drop a comment and tell me, what was the most powerful moment in this story for you? Thank you for watching. Remember, you are not defined by your circumstances. You are defined by how you rise above them. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next story.